this is now a weekly thing, the Blackhawks injury report, and it's a novel. Now includes 9 names, all on IR, not just a couple of day-to-day stingers or illness, whatever, what have you. Nope, we're full-blown on IR for all of these guys. Joey Anderson, left shoulder. Andreas Athanasiou, groin. Anthony Beauvillier, left wrist. Connor Bedard, fractured jaw. God, that hurts to say. Nick Foligno, fractured left finger. Seth Jones, shoulder. Taylor Hall, ACL out for the season. Tyler Johnson, right foot. Taylor Radish, left groin strain, man. Once again, a novel here, but let's circle back on a couple of these new additions here, Ron, because the fractured jaw, Connor Bedard, there's no timeline yet. They're going to see some of the swelling go down before they really make a determination. This is typical 4 to 6 week timeline, though, if you just kind of look around the history of these injuries here. So the impact of this, and then not having Nick Foligno either, because he is the de facto, as we call him here with the capital C there, and he's not around then to protect maybe some of these other younger guys that may start to take some of the brunt of the other team's physicality.
Yeah, I will say one thing, Johnny. I think with Nick Foligno, I'm not so much concerned about the physical presence being gone as I am just the pure leadership in the locker room. I think that's the bigger loss for the Blackhawks because, as you mentioned, he is the de facto with that capital C right now. He is effectively the captain of this team. There is no doubt about that. I think any of our minds, whether it's us here at Four Feathers, anybody listening at home, and even people within the media around the league, etc. However, I think because of these injuries, some of these more physical guys are in the lineup now, right? A Mackenzie Entwistle, who's surely not afraid to throw the body around. Reese Johnson, who we have seen time and time again, is willing to get down and dirty. And hell, Philip Kurashev has shown a nice little grit to him, I think, this season, and he's not afraid to help stick up for guys as he did for Connor Bedard against the New Jersey Devils. So, and that doesn't even end there, right? Boris Kachuk's a physical player. Hopefully Taylor Radish is back sooner than later, and it seems like that could be the case. He's a guy that's a big body, isn't afraid to be physical. Tenorti's a big body, not afraid to be physical, as is Connor Murphy. So the physical presence, I'm not so worried about. I think the Blackhawks may have even gotten more physical because of some of these guys inserting into the lineup here, Johnny. But it is really just that veteran leadership, I think, that they're going to miss most from a guy like Nick Foligno not being on the ice.
Right. I want to make one last remark about the Connor Bedard injury here. And I'm not saying this is exactly what caused it, but you go and look at the circumstances of this, right? It was a zone entry on a power play. And then, sure, like you'd mentioned, Connor Bedard kind of dips the head a little bit as he's coming towards the center of the ice where Brendan Smith meets him, right? You go look at that whole sequence, though. Blackhawks got, I believe it was their first power play opportunity of the game there. And Kevin Korchinski is skating up center ice, and then he turns around and does the dreaded drop back pass. I understand the thinking behind it and getting the puck in your best playmakers' hands, most shifty guys' hands, right? They would always do it with Patrick Kane, try to get him to be the one bringing it up into the zone with speed. So I understand the theoretical thought process behind that. In practicality, though, Ron, on a power play, you have numbers. You have numbers, literally 5-on-4, or it could be 4-on-3 or 5-on-3, whatever. This is a 5-on-4 in this scenario. Now, if the guy already has a lane up the middle of the ice and has some speed and has wingers supporting on each side, use those numbers to your advantage as you enter the zone. And you don't have to go and take a massive hit in the center of the ice. You can go and chip it off to a corner as long as your guy has a headway towards the puck there. You're most likely going to recover it with your numbers. Instead, we drop it back to Connor Bedard. He comes, has to weave through a few more defenders there, and then he gets put in that situation. So maybe this could be a lesson that this might not always be the best end-all, be-all solution of entering the zone on the power play and maybe kill 2 birds with 1 stone, maybe cutting down on injuries, which we need here for the Blackhawks, and then also maybe having a little bit more, active activity on the power play, at least early in terms of entering the zone and getting set up earlier in these scenarios. That I just wanted to lay out the whole situation there because everyone's just going to look at the hit and think that's what it was. And you might not even
100%.
realize it's on a power play when you go and rewatch the highlight.
And just to emphasize too, Johnny, because I think you put that perfectly, it's not even like the Blackhawks say, hey, our strategy is if you have a lane, take it. If not, drop it back to one of these guys with speed, which it usually is Connor Bedard or even Philip Kurashev, typically on that top power play as those drop back guys. It seems like that's become their only option on the power play. And I think that makes it worse because not only, Johnny, to your point, right, of this situation is you kind of change the angle, you change the kind of the strategy where people are on the ice and things like that, but it also makes you predictable. It allows the other team to stand you up at the blue line. Then if they know that Connor Bedard's getting the puck on a drop back somewhere right before his own blue line and coming through the neutral zone, how do you fix that? To your point, right? If Kevin Korchinski's coming up the middle of the ice with a head of steam and he sees an opening to get into the zone, guess what? You can still use that drop back ability. Get him into the zone, allow him to curl around to one of the face-off circles if he's got the space. And then when you have two forwards coming into the zone with speed, then you can hit a pass. Maybe you get a quick shot from Connor Bedard with some juice behind his shot, and maybe it's just a quick hitter from the blue line or even from the top of the circles, and it beats the goalie. That's a whole nother just
the dynamic that you can unlock, right?
Thank you. Yes. And so I think that's the biggest issue too, just to emphasize on what you said, is they've become so predictable because they do it every single freaking time they're on the power play.
Right. And then also when you use the drop back pass, you make those wingers going up the boards go from a position of speed and having to stop then and start pumping their legs again going into the zone. So then they're trailing their own guy going into the zone. And I just, like I said, I feel like you can generate a little bit more momentum and get set up earlier if you don't have to resort to the drop back pass every single time. So
we're gonna clip this and we're gonna send this to CLR real quick. Just think about it. Just think about it. Just think about it.
Like I said, I understand that maneuver in theory. I do, but in practicality, it's not always, the solution, right? So I'll just leave it at that in terms of the setup on that injury.